So we're going to be doing a video on this worksheet Wspm 2.2 for all those that are still struggling on these one-step equations. I guess some of them could be considered two-step, especially those fractions. But on all of these, it's just a question of looking at your variable, which is clearly on the left side of the equal sign, and getting it by itself. So you don't want this minus 7, so you got to get rid of the minus 7 by doing the opposite, plus 7. Cancel it out, which you do to one side, do to the other side. So you will have the y left over, bring it down, your equal sign, bring it down, and 8 plus 7 is 15. I don't think anybody actually needed help on that one. But let's take a look at some other ones that are more challenging. Let's say, which one? How about number, does anybody get thrown off with number 4? It's the same thing, but x is on the right side. X is on the right side of the equal sign. So x is over here. Let's get x by itself. You don't want this 5. So to get rid of that 5, you're going to go minus 5. Minus 5. And again, you think of money here. You're combining like terms. You owe $13. You owe $5. You're going to owe $18 altogether. Take the equal sign, bring it down. Get the x, bring it down. There's your answer. X equals negative 18. It's written backwards. Negative 18 equals x. So that was an excellent question. Somebody just asked, Adrian, you just said, could the variable be negative? If this were a negative x, all you'd have to do is change the sign, and what you do to one side, you do to the other side, you change the sign. So let's just say, for example, you had negative x equals negative 13. You cannot leave it like that. Let's say you were working out a problem and that was your answer. You cannot leave it like that. You have to actually change this to a positive, and what you do to one side, do to the other side, so you change the other sign also. Okay? So the correct answer would be positive x equals positive 13, not negative x equals negative 13. Does that make sense? Yeah? I mean, the actual explanation for negative x equals negative 13, the actual explanation is that you're going to multiply the left side by negative 1, and you're going to also multiply the right side by negative 1, and that's how you get positive x equals positive 13. But it's easier to just change the sign and change the sign. Anyway, let's move on to something that some people might get confused with, kind of like number 8. Some people get confused just because there's a plus negative. But nevertheless, it's still a negative 10, right? You want y by itself. It's not by itself. There's a negative 10 right here. So the way to get rid of something is to do the opposite. The opposite of fire is water. If there were fire, you turn it off with the water. But if there's a negative 10, you got to get rid of the negative 10 by doing the opposite of negative 10. What's the opposite of negative 10? Positive 10. So you're going to go plus 10 right here. It's going to cancel. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. Plus 10 over here. So you end up with y. Bring that down. Y. Bring down the equal sign. Y equals 6 plus 10 is 16. Obviously, you probably shouldn't do all these arrows that I'm doing right here. That looks ugly, right? But the bottom line is y does equal 16. Now, of course, whenever you have an answer, you could always double check and make sure you got it right by taking the 16, plugging it back into y, and seeing if it gives you a true statement. And it really does. Y, if it's 16 plus negative 10, if you have $16, you owe $10, you're going to have 6 left over. And that's what we call double checking our answer, plugging it in and seeing if it works. Let's go to something more challenging. The minus might throw some people off also. So, for example, which one? 34. I was thinking about number 10. The minus has to change to plus before doing anything. And then you could say, okay, j plus 17 equals 36. How do you get rid of the plus 17? You subtract 17. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. You will have j left over equals 19. And that's your final answer. Now, which one were you guys asking for?
34.
Dang, going to the fun ones, huh? 34. Okay, now 34, before doing 34, how about something with a regular easy fraction like 25? How do you do that? So, you're correct. You have c over 4. What does over 4 mean? It means divided by 4. So you have the division of 4. You want to get rid of the division of 4. So how do you get rid of something? You do the opposite. The opposite of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. And notice that I put the multiplication of 4 up here on the numerator position because that's when you truly get the 4 over 4. And 4 over 4 cancels out to be 1. So that's why I write it up here. Times 4 up there. That way it cancels. And what you do to one side, you do to the other side times 4 over here to maintain the balance of the equal sign of the equation. So what do we have left? We have the C left over, we have an equal sign, and 16 times 4 is 64. So that's your final answer right there. Now, the point I want to make here is that if you guys think fractions are difficult, they're not. Because any fraction you have in an equation, even if you have multiple fractions in equations, you could get rid of them by multiplying by the denominator. So you see that t over 4? You could get rid of that fraction by multiplying everything by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by what?
4.
By 4. So put times 4 times 4. Up here it cancels out. The t comes down, the equal sign comes down, and we end up with negative 52. Because a negative times a positive equals a negative, and that's your answer right there, guys. So it doesn't matter how ugly the fraction is. Somebody said 34?
Yeah.
Okay. That a over 10. How do you get rid of the divided by 10? How do you get rid of the divided by 10? Multiply by 10. Multiply by 10. Now, what you do to one side, you do to the other side. Multiply by 10. So the 10s cancel. This 10 with this 10 cancel out. You have a nice beautiful a left over. You have equals, but let's figure out what's happening over here. How do you multiply a fraction with a number? You could either cancel, or you could multiply the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom by putting it over 1. So that will be 20. 2 times 10 is 20. 5 times 1 is 5, so 20 over 5. But what is 20 over 5? It's 4. So A equals 4. Does that make sense? Okay. Last one, guys, before we leave. Last one. How do I do that one? I want to get rid of the divided by 9. What do I do? Multiply by 9. It'll cancel out. Multiply by 9. I want to get negative 90 over here. Bring down the equal sign. Bring down what's left over, the 5p. Now I need to get rid of the 5 by dividing by 5. Dividing by 5. P equals negative 18. Not negative 14. Sorry about that. P equals negative 18. So right now I want to just jump around the page and work on a couple of them. All right. That way I can make a video of this and upload it. So I think people get confused when they have the minus situation, right? So for example, number 17, whenever you have a minus, you have to change it to a plus, right? You have to change it to a plus before anything. So right here, you have 4, you have a positive h, or 4 plus h equals 68. And the goal to solving any equation is to get h by itself on one side of the equal sign. So right here we have the equal sign, h is on the left side, it's not by itself, all right? You have a 4 right there. And it doesn't say 4 times h. What does it say? It says 4 plus h. So you're adding 4 to h. So if you want to get rid of the addition of 4, how do you do that? You do the opposite. What's the opposite of adding 4? Minus 4, right? Minusing 4. So we're going to subtract 4 right here, and it's going to cancel out. And what I do to one side, it's going to make it off balance until I do it to the other side. So what do I have left? I have a positive h. I just write down h. I have my equal sign. I'm going to bring that down. And I have 68 take away 4. That's 64. And that's it. We're done. H equals 64. Cool? Yes. All right. How about this next one? Not only does it have the minus that we need to change the plus, but it also has the variable on the right side of the equal sign. A lot of people get confused with that. So let's first change the minus to plus. plus. So we really have, if you want to make it a little easier, rewrite everything, we really have this. You don't need the plus plus. You don't need the plus plus. You could just write 1 plus, right? So you really have this equation, negative 56 equals 20 plus j. So you want to get the j by itself. What are you going to do, guys, to get the j by itself? Minus 20. Yeah, you have a positive 20 right here. You want to get rid of that. You're going to do the opposite, which is minus 20, a negative 20. And of course, what you do to one side, you're going to do to the other side to maintain the balance. So if you owe somebody $56 and then you owe them $20 more, what do you end up with? You end up owing them a lot, right? How much do you owe them? $76, right? Negative 76. And the j, you're just going to bring that down. So you really have j by itself. Oh, I'm done because j is by itself. Anytime you have your variable by itself on any side, it doesn't matter if it's on the left side or the right side, j is by itself, you're done. J equals negative 76. Of course, the nicer looking answer would have the j on the left side and the negative 76 on the right side. But either way, you already have the right answer, negative 76. Is there any other ones on this worksheet that you would like to see? Or do I just give you time to work on it? 34, we did it on the video. You could watch it later. How about number 27? Yeah. Anytime you have a fraction, you could get rid of that fraction. Even if you have multiple fractions, you could get rid of all the fractions. How do you get rid of a fraction? By multiplying everything by the denominator. Because remember, this is really saying my voice is leaving me, sorry. D divided by 3. Okay, so if you don't want the divided by 3, you're going to do the opposite of dividing by 3, which is clearly what? Multiplying by 3. So I'm going to put multiplication dot, don't do the x, that was elementary school. Right now, multiplication dot 3. And notice that I wrote that 3 up on top. And what I do to one side, I do to the other side. I'm going to multiply by 3 over here. Okay? So I put it on top because 3 divided by 3 cancels out. 3 over 3 cancels out. And that's why we have the d left over, the equal sign, and then we have 3 times 84. That's going to be, if I do distributive property in my head, 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 8 is 24. So 240 plus 12 would be 252. So we have negative 252. So there's your answer. Of course, the better looking answer would be the D on the left side and the negative 252 on the right side. So I'm going to stop right there, but you guys can't stop right there. You guys have to finish every single question on this worksheet. The answers are on the back. Of course, this video is uploaded so you guys could get an idea of how to do most of them, but you're responsible to do all of them.